3 weeks ago, I was cleaning out my dead aunt's storage unit when I found a missing child poster from 1994. The kid in the photo was 6 years old, gap in his front teeth, a scar above his left eyebrow shaped like a comma. Last seen wearing a red jacket outside a grocery store in Dayton, Ohio. I have that exact scar. I have that exact gap, even after braces. And in a shoebox in my mother's closet, there's a photo of me at 6 years old, wearing a red jacket, taken 2 days after that boy disappeared. My name is Ethan Carter. I'm 32 years old, and I think the woman who raised me has been lying to me since the day I could talk. Before any of this, my life was boring in the best way. I worked as a claims auditor for an insurance firm in Columbus. I had a one-bedroom apartment with too many houseplants and a coffee maker that took 12 minutes to do its job. I called my mother, Diane, every Sunday at 6. Diane Carter raised me alone. My father, according to her, wasn't in the picture. A phrase she used so often it stopped sounding evasive and just sounded like punctuation. I never pushed. Some kids grow up curious about the gaps in their story. I wasn't one of them. I had a mother who loved me. A roof, a graduation photo on the wall. That felt like enough. Diane's sister, my Aunt Carol, passed away in April. Heart failure. Sudden. The kind of death that leaves a house full of unfinished sentences. Diane asked me to help clear out Carol's storage unit on the edge of town, Unit 14C, because she couldn't face it alone, she said. I said yes, because that's what you do. The unit was exactly what you'd expect. Furniture under sheets, tax records, a box of Christmas ornaments wrapped in newspaper from 2 decades ago, and then, near the back, a metal filing cabinet that Diane specifically asked me not to touch. Just the furniture and the boxes up front, she said. The cabinet's full of Carol's old work files. Boring stuff. I didn't think anything of it. Not until she left to grab us coffee and was gone for almost 40 minutes for a coffee shop 6 blocks away. That's when I opened the cabinet. Most of the drawer was exactly what Diane said. Old invoices, a few photographs of Carol's coworkers at a company that didn't exist anymore. But underneath a manila folder labeled personal, there was a single laminated sheet, yellowed at the edges, folded into quarters like someone had carried it in a pocket for years before putting it away for good. I unfolded it. Missing child, Caleb Dean Morrison, age 6. Last seen outside Foodway Market, Dayton, Ohio. September 14th, 1994. The photo was a school portrait. Blue background, the kind every kid in America has one of. A boy with sandy brown hair, a missing front tooth, and a small comma-shaped scar above his left eyebrow. I have that scar. I got it, according to family lore, when I fell off a porch step as a toddler. I have a faint memory of the moment Diane told me that story. Except now, looking at this flyer, I couldn't place where that memory actually came from. Was it a memory? Or just a story I'd been told so many times it calcified into one? I told myself it was a coincidence. Lots of kids have scars. Lots of kids are missing teeth in school photos. I almost folded the flyer back up and put it exactly where I found it. Then, I flipped it over. On the back, in handwriting I didn't recognize, someone had written a date, September 16th, 1994, and a single line. He's safe now. Don't look for him. September 16th, 1994 is 2 days after my own birth certificate says I was born 40 miles away in a different county. That's not possible. Bless my birth certificate is... I didn't say anything to Diane that day. I put the flyer back exactly where I found it, drove home, and didn't sleep. The next morning, I requested a certified copy of my own birth certificate from the county. I'd never actually needed one before. No passport renewal, no real reason. It took 3 days to arrive. When it did, 2 things were wrong. First, the filing date. My birth certificate was filed 11 days after my supposed date of birth. Most are filed within a day or two. 11 days is unusual enough that the clerk on the phone actually commented on it before I'd said a word. Second, the attending physician's signature didn't match any doctor registered at the hospital listed. I checked the state medical board database myself, twice, because I assumed I was reading it wrong. I wasn't. The doctor's license number on my birth certificate belonged to a podiatrist in a different city who, according to public records, had retired in 1989, 5 years before I was supposedly born. I called the hospital listed on the certificate. After being transferred 3 times, a records administrator told me, carefully, that they had no record of a birth matching my name or date in their archives at all. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot for almost an hour, not crying, just doing the math over and over, hoping a different number would come out. It didn't. Whoever filed my birth certificate either made a catastrophic clerical error that no one ever caught for 32 years, or my birth certificate was manufactured. And the only person who could explain it was 40 minutes away, in a house I grew up in, almost certainly already aware that I'd opened that cabinet. Because when I checked my phone that night, there was a voicemail from Diane. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "Ethan, sweetheart, we need to talk. Before you do anything else, call me back." I drove to Diane's house the next evening. She'd clearly been waiting. The porch light was on before I even pulled into the driveway. The kind of detail you only notice when you're looking for proof that someone's been rehearsing. We sat at the kitchen table, where I'd done homework for 15 years. She made tea neither of us touched. I put the flyer on the table between us. I didn't say anything. I just watched her face. She didn't ask what it was. She didn't pretend not to recognize it. That, more than anything, told me everything I needed to know before she said a single word. "I was never going to tell you," she said. "I told myself that was protecting you." "Protecting me from what, Mom?" She flinched at the word mom like it cost her something now. "Carol worked for a private placement agency in the early 90s, she said. Not adoption, placement. Families who couldn't have children, paired with children who needed new starts. It wasn't supposed to be like what you're thinking, like what I'm thinking. Diane, there's a missing child poster with my face on it. You weren't taken from a loving home, Ethan. I need you to understand that part before anything else." "Then what happened to him? To Caleb?" She was quiet for a long time. Long enough that I almost stood up and left. "His biological mother was 19, addicted, in and out of custody hearings for 2 years before you were ever placed with us. The agency told me the system had already failed him once and they were trying to make sure it didn't happen twice. So you bought a missing child. I adopted a 6-year-old who had already been taken from his home twice by the time he came to us. I didn't file a false report. I didn't write that note. I never even knew the woman who wrote it. But you knew my name wasn't Ethan." Her silence lasted exactly long enough to answer the question for her. "Carol picked the name," she finally said. "She thought Ethan sounded like a fresh start. I just went along with it. For 32 years, I went along with it. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the mug she'd made me. I just asked one question. What was the agency called?" "New Horizons Family Services," she said. "It closed in 1997. There was an investigation. I don't know the details. I swear to you, I don't. I spent the next 4 days doing what I do for a living, except this time, the claim I was auditing was my own life. New Horizons Family Services had, in fact, been investigated in 1996 by the Ohio Attorney General's office for what court filings vaguely called irregularities in placement documentation. The investigation found that at least 11 children, across 3 counties, had been placed with adoptive families using falsified state paperwork between 1,991 and 1,996. Some of those children, the filing noted, had open missing persons cases at the time of placement that were never closed in the system, meaning that legally, on paper in some county database somewhere, I might still be an active missing person. 11 children. Caleb Dean Morrison, according to the original 1994 flyer, was one of them. I found a local news archive piece from 1996, 3 paragraphs, buried on page 9, quoting a woman named Renee Morrison of Dayton, who told a reporter she had never stopped looking for her son and that the state owed her answers it never gave. Renee Morrison would be 57 years old now. I found a Renee Morrison in a public records search. 57 years old, currently living 40 minutes from where I grew up. I also found something else, almost by accident. A court filing from 1997 listed the names of 2 caseworkers tied to the New Horizons investigation. One of them had since died. The other one, according to a state licensing database, had her social work license permanently revoked in 1998 for, in the board's exact wording, falsification of placement records and obstruction of an active missing persons inquiry. That phrase sat with me for a long time. Obstruction of an active missing persons inquiry. Not a clerical mistake, not an accident. Someone, somewhere, had known exactly what they were doing while a mother 40 minutes from my childhood home spent years filing reports that went nowhere. I stared at that address for 2 hours before I could make myself write it down. Because if she was who I thought she was, I wasn't about to knock on a stranger's door and ruin her life with a theory. I was about to knock on a stranger's door and give her back her son. I almost didn't go. I sat in my car outside her house for so long that a neighbor came out twice to check on me. When I finally knocked, an older woman answered, tired eyes, gray hair pulled back, the kind of careful, guarded posture you get from decades of bad news arriving unannounced. "Can I help you?" she asked. I didn't have a script. I thought about this moment for 4 days and somehow prepared nothing. "My name is Ethan Carter," I said. I think I might be your son." She didn't slam the door. She didn't call the police. She went completely, perfectly still, the way people go, still right before they either faint or remember something they buried on purpose. "Caleb," she said. Not a question, just the name, like she was testing whether her own mouth still remembered the shape of it. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I don't know if I'm him, but I found a missing child flyer with my face on it, and a birth certificate that doesn't exist in any hospital. And I didn't know where else a person is supposed to go with that." She invited me in. On her mantle, next to a faded photo of a boy in a red jacket, there was a small framed school portrait. Same blue background as the flyer, same gap-toothed smile, same comma-shaped scar above the left eyebrow that I had assumed for 32 years was a porch step accident and not a fact she'd memorized from searching for it for 2 decades. She asked if I'd be willing to do a DNA test. Not because she didn't believe me, because, she said quietly, she'd believed wrong before, twice, and it had nearly destroyed her both times. I said yes, before she finished the sentence. The results took 11 days. I won't pretend I wasn't hoping for a clean, simple answer either way. Yes, I'm Caleb, or no. This was all a strange coincidence, built on a scar and a birth certificate clerical error that happened to line up. Real life doesn't usually hand you clean answers. It came back a 99.3% probability of a maternal match. I am, biologically, the boy on that flyer. Caleb Dean Morrison, reported missing in September 1994, was never found by the agency that was supposed to find him, because the people responsible for finding him were the same people who'd quietly placed him 40 miles away under a different name. Diane wasn't part of writing that note. I believe that, even now, but she spent 32 years choosing comfortable silence over an uncomfortable truth, and that's its own kind of decision, even if it isn't the same as the original crime. Renee Morrison and I are still figuring out what we're supposed to be to each other. She's not trying to replace anyone. I'm not trying to erase the woman who raised me. Some nights I genuinely don't know whose Sunday phone call I'm supposed to make. We've started slow. Coffee on Thursdays. She showed me a box she kept for 32 years. Birthday cards she wrote every September 14th and never sent because she had no address to send them to. 11 unopened envelopes, each one addressed to a 6-year-old who was, by then, already someone else's son under someone else's name. What I do know is this. There were 11 children named in that 1996 investigation. I've only confirmed the story of one of them, mine. The county's missing persons files on the other 10 were never publicly closed. I've started looking for the rest. If this story hit you the way it hit me to live it, subscribe, because I'm telling the other 10 stories next. One investigation at a time. Comment found if you want me to start with case file number 2. And if you know someone who grew up with questions about their own past nobody would answer, maybe send them this video. You never know whose drawer they haven't opened yet.